Are we on?
Yep.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome this wonderful evening in Elmer, Ontario. Notice an absence. Let's begin with a moment of reflection and respect. Thank you very much. Let's begin item number 3, confirmation of the agenda. We have a motion.
Yep. That council confirms the agenda for the meeting of April 19th, 2023, with the addition of an item 15.2, closed session report CAO 26-23 regarding a matter of negotiation and mediation, with this report being closed to the public pursuant to section 2E and K of the Municipal Act 2001, as the subject matter pertains to litigation or potential litigation regarding matters before an administrative tribunal affecting the municipality or local board, and a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiation carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board.
We have a mover and a seconder, moved by Deputy Mayor Barber, seconded by Councillor Chapman. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? Is carried, thank you. I remind councillors of declarations of pecuniary interest if it involves you. 5.1, we're going into a committee of adjustment. First, we need a resolution to recess and commence the committee of adjustment.
The council do now recess and commence a committee of adjustment meeting at 7:02 p.m.
We have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Van Ray, seconded by Councillor Rahi. All those in favor? As carried, thank you. And now we're in the committee of adjustment. Have the clerk read.
The Committee of Adjustment of the Town of Elmer is convened to consider Application 623. Additional information relating to the application is available for inspection between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. weekdays at Elmer Town Hall. Signed written submissions are accepted by the Secretary-Treasurer prior to or during the hearing, and such submissions shall be available for inspection by any interested party. If a party who is notified does not attend the hearing, the committee can proceed, and the party is not entitled to any further notice of the hearings. Submissions or requests for notice can be sent to clerks@town.elmer.on.ca. A copy of the decision will be mailed to those persons who attend or are represented at the hearing, and those who file a written request with the Secretary for notice of the committee's decision. The committee will receive input in the following order: presentation of the staff report by the Manager of Planning and Development, agent or applicant, the public, staff, and the clerk. Application 623 is made by Cornelius and Susie Wall as the owner of the property known municipally as 67 Queen Street South in the town of Elmer. The purpose of the variance is to seek relief from the residential type 2 zone in the town of Elmer comprehensive zoning bylaw number 57-99 to permit an 8.92 meters squared addition to an existing single detached dwelling.
Thank you. Could the Manager of Planning and Development please provide the report?
Thank you, Your Worship. The owners are seeking relief from the R2 zone provisions for the following. The rear yard depth provision from 7.5 meters to 1.83 meters, and the lot coverage maximum from 35% to 35.04%. Figure 1 shows the location of the lands. The location of the lands are located at 67 Queen Street South on the east side of Queen Street. just south of the intersection of Queen Street South and Sydenham Street East. Figure 2 shows the existing home on the property and the proposed addition. And if you note, the proposed addition would be in what we would call kind of the northeast corner of the lot. The lands are designated low-density residential in the Town of Aylmer official plan. The application was circulated internally and to applicable commenting agencies. No comments of concern were received internally as well. No comments of concern were received from any of the commenting agencies at the time of submission of this report. Also, the application was circulated to all neighboring property owners within the required setback. No comments from neighboring property owners were received at the time of submission of this report. Moving on to the 4 tests of the Planning Act. Section 45 of the Planning Act gives a municipality the authority to grant a minor variance to a zoning bylaw based on the 4 tests, as noted within Section 45 of the Act. First test, does the variance maintain the intent and purpose of the official plan? And for this application, it does. The second test, does the variance maintain the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? And yes, it does for this application. I don't want to go into too much detail, but essentially the intent of a rear yard setback is to provide adequate separation distances between dwellings and buildings that back onto each other. The intention of assigning a maximum lot coverage is to ensure there is enough permeable area on the lot for stormwater management and to provide sufficient amenity and separation area between lots. The proposed reduction to the minimum rear yard depth and the increase in maximum lot coverage meet the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. Third test, is the variance requested desirable for the appropriate and orderly development and use of the lands and buildings? And yes, it is. The variance will allow the owners to add an addition to their dwelling. Due to the shape and the area of the lot, the proposed addition to the dwelling is unable to meet the rear yard depth and the maximum lot coverage. It's also important to note that the addition to the dwelling is proposed in the rear and interior side yards along the north lot lines, and in particular, I just mentioned the northeast corner of the lot. The proposed rear yard depth of 1.82 meters for the addition will be in keeping with the existing rear yard depth for the existing dwelling. So the existing dwelling already kind of juts out into the rear yard already. The existing dwelling already has a deficiency in the rear yard. This is not extending into the rear yard any further. The variance will not compromise the existing development pattern or neighborhood character. Fourth and final test, is the variance minor in nature? And yes, it is. The impact from the proposed variances is quite minimal with respect to the environment, municipal functions, and surrounding property owners. Recommendation is that the application for minor variance A06-23 requesting relief from the specific provisions of Section 9, subsection 3 zone requirements for the residential type 2 R2 zone be approved, subject to no concerns being raised through any oral or written comments being received at the hearing tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Heather. Is the applicant present? If so, do they wish to speak? I don't see the applicant present. Thank you. Could the clerk confirm whether or not any members of the public wish to speak to the application?
No, there are no members of the public in attendance for the application.
Right, thank you. Has the clerk received any additional communications related to this application?
No, we have not.
Very well. So is discussion by council. Deputy Mayor Barber.
Thank you, Your Worship. The application appears to be minor in nature and is appropriate for the area, and consideration to accept it should be accepted.
Any other comments from council? Okay, with no further discussion, the committee will now consider the following resolution. Can you read the recommended resolution?
Yes. That the Committee of Adjustment of the Town of Aylmer receive report Plan 14-23, Planning Evaluation Report for the application for minor variance A623, respecting 67 Queen Street South, and that the application for minor variance A6-23 regarding relief from Section 9(3) zone requirements for the residential type 2 zone as follows. 1 rear yard depth minimum of 1.83 meters, 6 feet, and lot coverage maximum of 35.5 0.04% for the proposed addition be approved.
Great, thank you. You've heard the resolution, a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Oslash, seconded by, I should say, Committee Member Rahi and Committee Member Oslash. All those in favor? That's carried, thank you. And now we have a resolution to adjourn the committee hearing.
That the Committee of Adjustment meeting does now close and council reconvene at 7:10 PM.
Mover and a seconder. Moved by Committee Member Rahi, seconded by Committee Member Chapman. All those in favor? That's carried, thank you. Now to, on the public hearing under the Planning Act, we need a resolution to recess and enter the public hearing.
That council does now commence a public hearing at 7:11 PM to receive input from the public respecting Manager of Planning and Development Report 15-23, Planning Evaluation Report for the application for Official Plan Amendment OPA 2-23, and zoning bylaw amendments ZBA 2-23 respecting 34 Sydenham Street East.
We have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Van Ray, seconded by Deputy Mayor Barber. All those in favor? Do we have all those in favor? I think. Okay, carried. I didn't see any hands go up, so I want to say actually the second time. All right. Owen, you have resolution.
Yes. This public meeting is taking place under the Planning Act 1990 as amended. At this public meeting, council will hear public representations regarding the planning evaluation reports respecting the application for Official Plan Amendment 2-23 and zoning bylaw amendment 2-23 by 100004934 Ontario Inc. Please note that those who do not provide comment or written submission prior to the decision of the appropriate authority may not be afforded the right to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Council will hear comments in the following order: presentation of the staff report by the Manager of Planning and Development, agent or applicant, the public, staff, and the clerk.
All right, thank you. The Manager of Planning and Development, please provide.
Thank you, Your Worship. The purpose of the application for the official plan amendment is to add a special policy area to site-specific special policy areas, residential areas, and to redesignate the subject lands from low-density residential to special policy area medium-density residential 3, to permit commercial uses in a portion of the front of an existing building on the ground floor and to permit a maximum of 6 residential dwelling units in the remainder of the building. The purpose of the application for the zoning bylaw amendment is to implement the official plan amendment, and in particular, to rezone the subject lands from Commercial Core C1 to Commercial Core Special Provision 2, C1-2, to permit commercial uses in a portion of the front of an existing building on the ground floor, permit 1 residential dwelling unit in a portion of the front of an existing building on the ground floor, and permit a maximum of 5 residential dwelling units in the remainder of the building. The existing building on the subject lands has it's my understanding, has a vacant commercial unit in the front of the building on the ground floor and 5 existing residential dwelling units. The owners intend to reduce the size of the existing commercial unit in the building to construct the additional dwelling unit. It's my understanding the proposed use for the commercial unit located in the front on the main floor will be a professional office. And as mentioned, this property is located at 34 Sydenham Street East on the south side of Sydenham, just east of the intersection of John Street South and Sydenham Street East. Also, this building has historically always been known as the Lindsay Davis Building here in the town of Aylmer. Figure 2 shows the existing building and the proposal for the parking. And that is kind of what I would kind of see as one of the bigger impacts on site in the exterior of this property is the parking. I do want to note the parking requirements require 1 parking space per dwelling unit, 1 parking space for the commercial unit, and this proposal meets the parking requirements. Moving on to planning policy review, I reviewed the provincial policy statement, and I can comment that the proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment are consistent with the provincial policy statement. In terms of the County of Elgin's official plan, It's my opinion the proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment conform to the county's official plan. Next, the Town of Elmer's official plan. As mentioned, we have a proposed official plan amendment to our official plan in order to allow for this proposed development to occur. I do want to comment that the town's official plan provides direction on residential intensification and housing affordability. Indicates that the town is to encourage housing affordability through supporting increased residential densities in appropriate locations while considering alternative housing forms where full services are available. It's my opinion this proposed amendment is appropriate for the lands as the property has a long-standing use as a commercial multi-unit residential building and is surrounded by a variety of residential housing types with pedestrian walkability to commercial, institutional, and open space uses. The lands can be appropriately serviced, and there is sufficient on-site parking to accommodate the change in use. Therefore, the proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment will conform to the town's official plan, subject to the official plan amendment coming into force and effect. In terms of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, its recommendation is that the lands be rezoned to commercial core special provision. And this is basically just to implement the official plan. The zoning bylaw is a technical document, it's very regulatory, and we need to ensure that this proposed development is complying with that. In particular, to permit commercial uses in a portion of the front of the existing building on the ground floor, permit one residential dwelling unit in a portion of the front of an existing building on the ground floor, and permit a maximum of 5 residential dwelling units in the remainder of the building. I do want to note parking requirements have been met. However, there was a concern brought forward to me this morning by Councillor Chapman, and as well just before the start of this meeting, Councillor Chapman has concerns about parking and access to parking. As you'll see in earlier on in my report, I show the parking areas. That would be figure 2. We see there's about 3 different parking areas on this property. So we have parking in the front along Sydenham. And I do want to note that the legal access to this property and the main, what I'd call main legal access to this property is off of Sydenham Street East. So we have a parking area in the front. We have ability for parking along the side, and as well as parking for up to, I believe it looks like 3 vehicles in the rear. I do want to note that there is a back alley that abuts this property, as well as several other properties to the east of these lands. I've done a title search to confirm what we always suspected as staff is that this alleyway is owned by the town of Elmer. We believed we always owned it. I double checked it to confirm. However, we also did review all of our road bylaws and determined that this was never dedicated as a roadway. It is simply an alleyway. We do not stop anyone from utilizing that alleyway. However, it was my understanding in talking with staff that we do not maintain it. We own it, we do not maintain it. Councillor Chapman had concerns regarding the parking in the rear and how are tenants going to be able to access those lands. Given that this is an alleyway, we do not maintain it. It was Councillor Chapman wondered what my opinion would be on this, and it is my opinion that perhaps, and it was again a suggestion by Councillor Chapman, in which I do concur, that perhaps it may be beneficial to defer a decision on this application and request for the owner to come up with a plan on how they're going to maintain the alleyway to ensure that we do not have vehicles from these tenants being stuck, for instance, if it snows and whatnot, and as well requiring the owner to contact the adjacent property owners that abut these lands that may utilize this alleyway to ensure that they don't, basically to find out from them to ensure that they don't have any concerns that this alleyway can continue to be utilized by the tenants parking in the rear. Now, it is my understanding from the property owner, as well as my own personal knowledge of this town, that there has always been parking of some fashion in the rear of that property. But I do agree that would be best that we defer at this time and ask the owner to contact the adjacent property owners and provide us with a plan on how that how they would assist tenants in situations where, they may be stuck. Now, that may also require staff to reach out to legal because these are town-owned lands. So I do think it's important that we maybe take a step back and take a look at some of these things before we move ahead with a decision tonight. I do also want to note as well that it's important to note that this proposed redevelopment will require the issuance of a building permit and inspections from the town's chief building officials, as well as with our town's fire chief. And that, as part of the building permit process, building and fire requirements will be required to be incorporated into the building conversion. I do want to note that the applications were circulated internally and to all applicable commenting agencies. No comments of concern were received at the time of writing of this report. The applications were also circulated to all the neighboring property owners within 120 meters of the property, and no comments were received at the time of writing of this report. So I'm kind of changing my recommendation right now. My recommendation would be that we receive my report and that council defers the adoption of the official plan amendment and defers the approval of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and request for the owner to provide information on the maintenance of this alleyway for their tenants, as well as to provide us with confirmation that they have been in touch with the adjacent property owners and that they have no concerns on the continued use of this alleyway. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Heather. We note your recommendation and the changes to that. Council will have probably other questions during the discussion period, but first I want to go through the process. The next item on the process is to ask if the applicant or agent is present, and I think he is. If so, do you wish to speak to the application? No, but you can be ready for questions, which I'm sure you'll get from council. Could the clerk confirm whether or not any members of the public wish to speak to the application?
No, I don't believe so. We do have the applicant in attendance, but no one else.
Okay. Has the clerk received any additional communication related to the application?
No, we have not.
Discussion. I see the applicant has moved to the podium. Did you want to make a statement before, or are you just there to answer questions?
Answer questions? Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine, thank you. Councillor Van Raes.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant. The commercial space is currently vacant.
Correct,
And there's one commercial space.
Correct.
And you're looking at reducing the size of that to add one residential unit on the main floor.
Correct, yeah.
Are the 5 residential units vacant, or are they full right now?
They are occupied, yes.
And Heather, correct me, how many parking spaces are needed? One per unit and one per commercial space?
Correct.
And currently, there's room, space for nine vehicles, so more than enough. Do the tenants have issues accessing the parking spaces now?
None whatsoever. Most of our tenants actually don't drive.
Okay.
Which is why they're there, due to the proximity of the building to all of the local establishments. It's not needed for them. So I believe currently we only have 3 tenants that have a vehicle in the building.
So adding one more parking space, you don't think would be an issue? And I'm trying to look
Not
at
to my knowledge.
the space. There's the back alley, but it looks at the side of the building. There's the driveway that goes to the back.
Yes,
So there could be access if no one blocks that part, drive to the back.
that's
the
correct,
back
yes.
alley.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, those are my questions. The only other comment I had is that at any time I see adding a residential space in Elmer where it's greatly needed, I think that's great for the town. It could be great for anybody that could potentially rent that unit, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Deputy Mayor Barber.
Thank you, Your Worship. This previously was Dr. Vovoda's office. And the building itself has some interesting architectural appeal for sure. My question relates to Councillor Chapman's questions about parking. Looking at the diagram, if we can just scroll back a little bit, I'm curious how the cars on the interior of the parking spaces actually get there. Is the diagram not to scale perhaps, or how do the back cars get in there?
Through the back alleyway.
They're all from the back?
Yes, yes.
Okay. If the two cars in the center are parked there, is access restricted?
No.
How so?
The back alleyway is only accessible to our building. There are fences and if not buildings that block that entire alleyway, with the exception to Tom Hill's building, which does have a small jet out for a garage door, but however, he parks in front, and I do believe his parking, there is a parking space or laneway on the front side of that building, if I'm not correct. So right now, it's just our residents that have access to that alleyway.
Your worship, can I go to the screen?
Sure.
And I'm not quite following this, maybe you can help me.
Sure, absolutely.
Everybody comes in from the back,
That's correct.
okay? Is this the property line?
Yes,
If these two guys are there,
yes.
how do these guys?
Oh, they exit off of.
Are you
Skidmore.
coming off here?
Yes, yes.
Okay. These two guys are parked, these two people come in behind them, can they get out?
No, but that diagram is more just to show how many cars we could fit there.
Big cars, little cars, eh?
Yeah. But typically, the two vehicles to the left, just off of Sydenham, would not be there.
Okay.
So anyone could freely move in and out of the
Well,
parking space.
it looks like these are parking spaces on the roadway.
Oh, I believe that's
Sidewalk?
the sidewalk, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Isn't there parking on the side of the street?
There is, yes.
Okay. I just never visualized an opening in there. Okay, thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Any other questions? Councillor Rahi.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Last time I was in that property, which is one that's for sale, I didn't think that there was actually access to that back alley, because I got through that 9-foot one between the property line and the building with my pickup truck. It was not a good time trying to get spun around behind the building to get back out.
Oh, okay.
I don't think the picture of these parking, like the parking spaces, are overly realistic. Just because you can park cars doesn't mean that that's like Deputy Mayor was just showing. Just because you can park 4 there doesn't mean that you actually will. It's saying that you have the space to, but
That's correct, yes. Yeah.
But you're not, like, I mean, if you're having a party, you could park them in there, but everyone leaves at the same time.
Yes.
But so realistically, you have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 valuable parking spots.
Correct, yes, without anyone having to
Yes.
move their vehicle.
Which still
Correct.
gives you at least 1 per unit.
Yes, yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Councillor Roselach.
Yes, your worship. I have a question for Heather James, the planner. The lane behind this property is Pheasant Lane. It proceeds down and ends at Queen Street. It is behind my property. And Mary French and myself went to council probably 4 or 5 years ago. And the town denied it, they own the lane. But they finally coughed it up that we own the lane. But manager of Parks and Rec, Tom Poland, was involved. and we had him put up signs about both ends of the restricted property, the restricted lane. And we had him cut the lane twice a year. I think in the last couple of years, that has not been done. It was supposed to be done. But the reason Mary French and I went to the town was a lot of tenters were in that property behind my house and behind Mary's. And a lot of riffraff was going there, and a lot of stealing was going there. The neighbor next to me got $3,000 of tools stolen out of his garage. And the town does maintain that property. It's supposed to
Counsel-
maintain that property.
Councilor Roselach, I'm trying to find how this relates to this property right now, or the question you're going to.
Well, Heather Sen said the town does not maintain that property. The town owns the property, but does not maintain it. I said we should maintain it, and there's signs. We had Tom put up signs at both ends of King Street and Queen Street, but no restriction, because tenters were going there, and everything was going there.
Comment on this, and then I'll
Yes.
get him the first.
Yeah, I think I gleaned a question out of that. So in terms of, when we consider maintenance, it's not just the grass cutting. We're thinking about winter maintenance often when we think about a traveled portion or even a private kind of lane. So that is probably the primary concern, is that there's no winter maintenance going there. And certainly, when we look at a situation like this, it would be helpful to understand the applicant's desire to maintain that access for, not just for himself or for all the property owners, or subsequently, certainly the town isn't married to this piece of land, so if there was an offer to purchase it, we could look at that as well, but we need to consult with the neighboring property owners as well. I was involved in many issues like this in Simcoe, where they had numerous ones there, and they usually only went out once every 3 or 4 years to hack down trees that were growing, but I do acknowledge your concerns that if you leave your shed unlocked and you've got one of these back alleys, stuff can happen.
Yeah. Well, anyway, further to my comment, Tom was supposed to cut the grass a couple times a year. It's the lane, Pheasant Lane is a, for the East Link and for Hydro. It's, the Hydro comes down, all the time, and trims the trees, and puts new hydro posts in, and Eastlink has the underground cables running down that lane. So it's an important lane, and you can't sell it to homeowners because of Hydro, Earth Corp, and Eastlink.
Okay.
It's the town property, you know.
Okay,
and
thank you
has
for
to
the,
maintain-
right.
You have to maintain it.
Thank you for the question, Councilor Roselach. I didn't understand where you were going with that. Heather had a question.
It was just to kind of add further to what Andy was saying regarding road maintenance, and Rob was just, Rob Johnson was just confirming, I believe what Andy was saying, is that correct, Rob?
Yeah, we concur with what Andy said. There's a difference between maintenance that we do on land, grass cutting and all that stuff, or maintaining as a travel portion of the road allowance. And I think the concern here is, it's not maintained as a traveled road allowance. It is maintained as good landowner practice.
Okay, thank you for that. Any further comments or questions?
I could maybe back up and I give you a little bit of a history on this. Maybe I should have started with that. I acquired the building in February of 2022, and I actually did it on my couch in isolation with COVID. And the primary reason I bought the building is because it may not have heritage status, but it is such a beautiful building that I was just really concerned that a developer might come in and want to tear it down and put something that's not traditionally what Elmer is about. So that's primarily why I bought the building. When we took possession, the commercial space is about, I think it's 1,200 or 1,000 square feet. And my primary goal was to move my office in there and use it for my office space, which is insurance brokering. And I just thought that was silly because it's 1,200 square feet for just myself. So Elmer's my home, and I want to do something good for the community. So I thought, we do have a low vacancy, and it would be a really good, easy fix to make another apartment out of it and give something back to the town. So having said that, with the questions about the alleyway, I'd be more than willing to pick up the liability for maintaining that, including having our insurance pick up what we call a waiver of subrogation and to hold harmless against the town, and we would maintain that laneway. I was under the impression that it was being maintained by the town. Someone certainly is plowing it. I don't know who it would be because we're the only ones that have access to it really, other than maybe Tom Hill, but I don't know why he would come all the way back to it. So that's certainly an option that we're willing to do and take on that cost. Another option might be, as one of the council members suggested, is we'd be willing to buy the lot and forego all of the maintenance or issue that the town might have with maintaining it by purchasing the land from the town. Hopefully that might satisfy any issue that.
Right, thank you, Ms. McVie. Any further questions for him? Comments from council? Okay. What do we have as a motion before us at this point?
The next
Because
motion
Heather-
would be we have to close the public meeting.
Oh, we have to close first, don't we? Yeah. Okay, with no further discussion, we adjourn the public meeting, and can you read the recommended resolution? Or you have a question, Heather?
Just want to make a comment. If council was to decide to defer the decision tonight, I would recommend that we do not have to hold another subsequent statutory public meeting because we are meeting the statutory public meeting requirements tonight. If this council decided to go with a deferral, it would just be a deferral with reasons for what council wants to review or have investigated with a follow-up report by council at a future council meeting. If that was the direction council wishes to go in tonight, that is what I would suggest. Thank you.
Thank you for that explanation. Good. Okay, Owen.
The council now close this public hearing at 7:38 PM and reconvene the meeting of council.
Yeah, mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Rahi and seconded by Councillor Chapman. This is just a motion to close the hearing, right? So all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Now we consider action on the report. Now, we had a report, we had a recommendation, and it got changed in several ways. So let's begin with the recommended change.
Yeah, so Heather may be able to correct me on this, but this was my listening to her recommendation, that the council of the town of Elmer receive report plan 15-23 regarding planning evaluation report, applications for official plan amendment, OPA 02-23, and zoning bylaw amendment application 02-23 respecting 34 Sydenham Street, and that council defer decision upon report plan 15-23. and defer adoption of zoning bylaw amendment and official plan amendment 15-23 and 26-23, and that council request the applicant consult with neighboring property owners and the town on parking, and that council direct staff to not hold a further public meeting pending additional information on parking.
That was easy for you to say. A mover and a seconder by Deputy Mayor Barber and seconded by Councillor Chapman. Now, I kind of have a question on this from staff maybe. This is a changed, well, it isn't changed, it's actually the only resolution that's on the floor. And if we defeat this resolution, what happens with this application, procedure-wise? Andy, or somebody can answer that?
So defeating this application, the item would still be on the floor and council could move a motion if they wished.
Just so we know. Comments, questions on the resolution? Councillor Uzlac.
Yes, Your Worship. But do we have a recorded vote?
Okay, when we come to the vote, I will ask for that. Comment, Councillor Van Raes.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Seems like the biggest issue right now is parking, but we don't seem to have an issue with creating a residential space, which is what the application is for. Seem to have an applicant that's very willing to work with us and make sure that he's doing everything that he can to make sure that there is adequate parking and people can get in and out, even with maintenance of the back alley. I don't think it would hurt to give the applicant a little bit more time to just figure out the details of the back alley. And then moving forward, it seems like it's gonna be a pretty simple process with just a staff report to approve this and then get the ball rolling. So I'd be in support of allowing the applicant a little bit more time to look at that. But it does seem like it's gonna be pretty simple moving forward.
Anyone else? Deputy Mayor Barber?
Just to follow up on that, Your Worship, just to make sure we're all on the same page, it is just to resolve the back lot access and access to the parking spaces, is it not?
Is that what everyone understands?
The actual application itself to create an additional living space is okay with council?
Well, as part of this resolution, if we defeat this resolution, then we would have to bring up another resolution dealing with just.
The actual application?
The application is part of this, right? Yeah.
The application would also be deferred, so the decision would be made at a future meeting.
Councillor Chapman?
Through you, Your Worship, that's what I was referring to, is if we defer it, it gives our applicant time to figure out that part of it, but it applies to the whole proposal. And when we bring it back, we would do the final decision.
Okay. Thank you for
It comes as
asking
a
for that.
package.
Yeah, thank you for asking that clarification. Anyone else? Seeing none, we will call the roll.
Councillor Chapman,
You're calling the vote, I'm sorry. Got it.
I'm in favor to defer, yes.
Councillor Oslech,
No.
Councillor Van Raes,
I'm in favor to defer.
Councillor Rahe,
In favor to defer?
Deputy Mayor Barber,
Yes.
and Mayor Cookett.
Yes?
So the vote is carried 5-1.
Okay, thank you very much. We are now,
Impact delegation.
we're back to delegations, and no, we're not. We're at the adoption of council and committee minutes, correct?
We have Brenda Slater, the impact delegation.
Oh, sorry, forgetting about Brenda. Hello, Brenda, welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for having me tonight. I just see that the host has disabled screen sharing for me.
Just hang on, we're trying to do that.
Perfect. Thank you very much. There, I hope everyone can see my slides now.
We're seeing them bright and clear.
Perfect. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me tonight. I am Brenda Slater. I am your account manager with Municipal and Stakeholder Relations, and I really look forward to working with everyone as your Municipal Relations account manager. At MPAC, we are Ontario's property experts, and our job is to assess and classify more than 5.5 million properties across Ontario, worth a combined value of more than $3 trillion. Every municipality uses our assessments to make informed decisions about your communities, including the distribution of property taxes. Ontario's property tax system and our assessments generate approximately $30 billion in tax revenue annually. There we go. There are 4 key players in Ontario's property assessment and taxation system, and we all have a different role to play, and we all have a different interest in the process. The provincial government, specifically the Ministry of Finance, is responsible for setting assessment and taxation legislation as well as policies. They also determine the education property tax rate. There is also an independent body that adjudicates appeals of MPAC's assessed values, which is the Assessment Review Board, or the ARB. And the ARB also falls under the jurisdiction of the province. MPAC is an independent, not-for-profit corporation. We are funded by all Ontario municipalities. And as I mentioned, our role is to accurately assess and classify all properties in Ontario in compliance with the Assessment Act and the other regulations set by the Government of Ontario. We are accountable to the province, to municipalities, to property taxpayers of Ontario through our board of directors that is comprised of provincial, municipal, and taxpayer representatives that are actually appointed by the Ministry of Finance. Municipalities determine their budget requirements, set tax rates, and collect property taxes to pay for municipal services. Municipalities use MPAC's assessment and their established tax rates to distribute their tax requirements to ratepayers. And property owners pay their property tax bills, and they help to set market value through ongoing property purchases and ongoing property sales. Maintaining Ontario's property database is very important. It is continuously updated so that municipal records are accurate when our municipal stakeholders are making important tax decisions. We maintain Ontario's property database by assessing new construction, new additions, and renovations promptly. We respond to property owner inquiries and work with property owners to help them understand their assessment. We support municipalities. We offer Municipal Connect, where our municipal stakeholders can obtain their primary source of assessment-related information. And as well, we work collaboratively with municipalities on projects that are important to you, such as digital building permits and digital building permit plans. We do have a statutory duty as well to handle requests for reconsiderations when individuals ask for a review of their assessment. The reassessment that was scheduled to occur in 2020 was postponed by the province to provide both stability and certainty to Ontarians and to enable municipalities to focus on responding to the challenges posed by the pandemic. As a result, property assessments continue to be based on a legislated valuation date of January 1, 2016. MPAC continues to maintain and update the assessment rules to reflect changes such as new construction and improvements to properties. For new construction and new buildings, MPAC determines a value as of January 1, 2016 to ensure equity when comparing to existing properties. While MPAC awaits the news from the provincial government about the next province-wide assessment update, January 1, 2016 continues to be Ontario's legislated valuation date, which is our fixed date to which all properties are valued. And although the assessment update remains paused, our work continues to ensure property data is up to date. Property owners will receive an updated property assessment notice from MPAC if there are changes to their properties. And once the province announces when the next assessment update will take place, and as well what the next valuation date will be, we will certainly let you know. And then we will be in a position to finalize our assessed values within your community, within the town of Elmer. After we've assessed a property or we've made a change to the assessment, as I mentioned, we do mail a new assessment notice to the property owner, and sometimes property owners do not agree with our assessed value. A property owner might connect with you to let you know that they disagree with our assessments. And it is important to remember that property assessments are not taxation. Property owners can visit About My Property to review the information MPAC has on file regarding their assessment to assure that it's accurate and correct. As well, they can use About My Property to conduct a search of comparable properties within their community. And if they still disagree with our assessments, they do have the option to file a request for reconsideration, and we will review their assessment free of charge. There is also the ability to file an appeal with the Assessment Review Board. The fastest way to start a review or a request for reconsideration is through About My Property or through mpac.ca, our website. I just wanted to take a moment to talk about the relationship between property taxes and property assessment. And property assessments distribute taxes. They do not determine the taxes paid. And one of the key factors to remember is it's not how much the assessed value of a property has changed, but rather how the assessed value has changed relative to the average change in their class within their community. And this concept is explained in the recent MPAC toolkit that we've provided to all municipalities. As well, it is available on our website, mpac.ca. So in anticipation of the next province-wide reassessment, we've implemented a strategy to address some of the misconceptions about the relationship between assessed values and taxation. And we've provided a number of resources for municipalities that will ensure that once the announcement is made, that we are ready and you are ready with the support that you require. So again, the digital toolkit is available on mpac.ca. It's available for yourselves as elected officials, for property owners to provide support, resources, and education for property owners as well. And we also have a brand new video, how your property taxes are calculated based on the assessed value of your home. And before I wrap up, I just wanted to provide a snapshot of the current assessment base for the town of Elmer, and this is for the 2023 taxation year. And it's broken actually down by property code. So we're sharing the number of each of the properties within these categories, the assessed value that they represent, and the percentage of your total assessment base. So thank you very much for having me here today. It's very important that we stay connected. We do encourage everyone to subscribe to our online e-newsletter. It's a monthly newsletter called In Touch, and you can do that through our website, mpac.ca. And as always, you are welcome to reach out to me at any time, and my contact information is here on the last slide.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brenda. Any questions from council? Not at all. I think they're all just waiting for the new assessment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me tonight.
Resolution?
That the delegation from Brenda Slater of MPAC regarding the property assessment in Ontario be received as information.
Mover and seconder, Counselor Chapman and Counselor Rahi. All those in favor? That carried. Thank you. Next item, 6, adoption, council and committee minutes.
That council approves the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on April 5th, 2023.
Mover and seconder, moved by Counselor Chapman, seconded by Counselor Van Raes. All those in favor? It's carried. 6.2, minutes to receive.
That council receives the minutes of the meeting of the Elmer Police Service Board held on March 14th, 2023, and the meeting of Elgin County Council held on March 28th, 2023.
Mover and seconder, Counselor Oslach and Counselor Rahi. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried, thank you. 7, consent agenda, resolution.
That items 7.1 to 7.3 of April 5th, 2023 consent agenda be received as information.
Mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor Barber, Counselor Chapman, sorry. Comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried, thank you. Item 8.1, Manager of Parks and Recreation.
Okay. That report, Recreation 2-23, be received for information, and council supports staff recommendation to approve the benefit concert and waive the rental fee.
We have a mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor Barber and Counselor Chapman. Discussion? Counselor Chapman.
Through your worship, this concert has been going on for a few years now. They raise a significant amount for the corner cupboard, and I think it's something that we should support.
Anyone else? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's carried, thank you. Item 8.2, Associate Director of Infrastructure and Operations, the resolution.
That report, OPNS 11-23, entitled Town of Elmer Design Guidelines Manual, be received for information, and that council endorse the Town of Elmer's Design Guideline Manual.
Okay. Mover and seconder. Counselor Chapman moves and seconded by Deputy Mayor Barber. Questions, comments? Or do we have a report? Who's doing the report? Anyone on this?
Terry.
Terry, sorry, Terry.
Oh, it's okay. Thank you, Worship. I'll keep it really brief. It's a pretty substantial document, so I won't bore you with all the details on it. But really, it's a good news story. Typically, in the past, we've relied on other municipalities' design guidelines. Now, we're excited that we have our own specific Town of Elmer Design Guidelines Manual. The document will really streamline the consultation process and make it easier for staff, consultants, and developers alike. The manual provides guidance on our standard design practices and expectations, and it's a living document that will be circulated annually for any revisions that we may have or that any of the stakeholders may have. So on that, again, it's a pretty substantial document. I'll pass it over for questions if there are any.
Counselor Chapman.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a comment. A lot of work went into that, and it's nice to see that we do have our own now instead of relying on others.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Barber.
Thank you, Your Worship. To Terry, it's probably in there, but the sidewalk issue. Historically, it's been on one side of the road. The Elk Street presentation, last council meeting, advocated sidewalks on both sides. What is the plan moving forward?
So through your worship, that would be more of the sidewalk policy. So this guideline speaks to our sidewalk policy. There isn't specific standards in this guideline. This is more to lay out how we would like to see design. Now, drawings will be added to it of specifying sidewalk on one side for locals, sidewalk on two sides for collectors. That being said, each site is specific, so they will take different designs in different sites. But that would be more of a sidewalk policy that we're going to look to update as well.
Another policy to come?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Well, these are truly guidelines to help developers know what we would like to see right off the bat with design. So that being said, we can add in anything we would like, and it's intended to be a living document. So if we have suggestions, they can be added.
Well, it's a good thing they'll be all working from the same page.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you. And it would be fair to say that it would speed up the process as well, right?
Yes, that is the intention of it.
Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried, thank you. 8.3, Director of Financial Services for resolution.
That report, Finance 9-23, entitled Quarterly Financial Summary Report, Q1, be received for information.
Mover and seconder, Councilor Oslach and Councilor Van Reyes. Heather.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you into members of council. I didn't have anything substantive that I didn't already include in this report. It's fairly straightforward since it is only Q1. That said, you will notice that we do pay out the majority of grants and donations in Q1 to help the community partners with their operations. So you will see those amounts be posted with the budget approval. So thanks for council for approving that budget so quickly. We're also awaiting invoices from reversing entries at this point for consultants and for auditors that we had accrued at year end. So if you see the negatives in the expenses, it's not that we don't have, that we have a credit from our expenses. We actually are just waiting for those final invoices to be posted because they reverse at year end. We also haven't done our journal entries yet from transfers to or from reserves because we wait till Q2 to do these just to avoid any cash flow challenges that we seem to, that we've had historically with all the tax revenue coming in. So I don't expect any cash flow issues, but we typically do those transfers in Q2 just so that council can see. That's why those aren't done yet. So the team, the finance team's working hard to be able to provide these reports to council on a timely basis. So you can expect the Q2 mid-July. That's all I had.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Council? Okay, seeing no comments, all those in favor? As carried, thank you. 8.4, Chief Administrative Officer, resolution.
That report, CAO 22-23, entitled Entrance into Telecommunication Agreement, be received for information, and that council endorse the town proceeding to enter into the agreement outlined as Appendix A of this agreement with FU Fiber.
Mover and seconder. Moved by Councilor Van Reyes, seconded by Councilor Chapman. Andy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So before you is a potential agreement to enter into with FU Fiber Incorporated. This is certainly an exciting proposal for the town of Elmer, where we are anticipating to see high-speed fiber brought in and brought to our residents. The project will take multiple phases, so it will not be immediate. It is likely going to take several years. The one aspect that is in, I had discussion with Dan from FU Fiber on, was the there's a requirement in the agreement for payment of fees to us for legal review. These are similar contracts to which other municipalities have applied for and utilized in Elgin County. So we really don't need that level of legal review. So we've agreed to remove that additional charge for them. And certainly we're looking at all sorts of other options to try to facilitate quicker spreading of fiber connectivity to our community.
Thank you. Council? Deputy Mayor Barber.
Thank you, Worship. Competition is certainly a good thing. Just for understanding purposes, historically, it's been believed that a second supplier of fiber has not come into town because of either unable to get access to the poles or the system, or secondly, the charge to do so was prohibitive. Assuming that's correct, what's changed?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the actual issue impacting Elmer was, it's kind of strange. There was almost a monopoly for numerous years on the sharing of the system. So people wanted to piggyback on other people's infrastructure to bring services to the community. And until, I believe it was 2018, it was sometime between 2014 and 2018, I don't remember the exact date, there was a CRTC decision that said that that could no longer occur. So now any provider within our borders is required to share their infrastructure with other people. And then the CRTC has recently been working on reducing the lease rate that you can utilize for that. So I believe just 2 months ago, they reduced it another 10%. I honestly think that Elmer would have already been connected because we do make a great business model for high-speed fiber. The way you look at it is, as a community, since we have so many houses, when you put fiber in, it's almost like every time they go to a new neighborhood, you're almost putting on a new off-ramp off of the 400 series. Well, we'd be one off-ramp for all the houses here, but I think what has tripped us up is really the promotion of connecting rural areas. The government funding and projects to connect smaller, more remote hamlets have actually taken the people who would have been installing infrastructure here and moved them to remote areas to do a lot of the connectivity. So you'll see people with the orange coils actually doing it in smaller areas, and they're finally coming through those areas to us as part of the connectivity. And that's kind of, it's a weird, almost perverse policy outcome that we're trying to invigorate high-speed installation, but it actually put us a couple years behind where we should have been.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that, Andy. Any other? Councillor Oslach.
Yes, Your Worship. This will lead to more competition?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so the intention of Foo Fiber is to bring in the line, and then they will lease out the equipment. So there will be, Foo Fiber likely will not be the direct dealer. They will likely sell to one provider at wholesale prices and then lease to other providers at a slight increase.
Great. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. And 8.5, the report on the response to the fire by the CAO. Recommendation.
That report, CAO 23-23, entitled Response Fire Downtown Elmer, be received.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Van Rys moves and Councillor Rahi seconds. Andy.
I'll be very brief on this. I just, I think certainly the work of our fire department was outstanding. I want to thank the mayor for attending the fire hall last week with me to thank the fire department for all their efforts. I know the chief has a specific report coming forward next week that has more details from the fire perspective, but everybody kind of pulled together on this, and the town's response to the fire and the immediate aftermath was outstanding. The police, our internal staff, our fire, everybody kind of made this a priority, and very, very proud that we've been able to get to this point now with it.
Thank you very much for that report. Council, comments? Okay. Councillor Van Ray.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to say to the chief, thank you for the hard work that night. Saw you running around. in a very organized, chaotic fashion. So thank you, and thank you to the entire.
Very well. And certainly, I mentioned this to the fire department last week, that, you know, we're very fortunate that such a knowledgeable group of firefighters in Elmer. It's really something to watch them at work. This was not a simple little fire, you know. It had the potential to burn the whole place down, and really, the very fact that they do the training and know what they're doing was just a tremendous effort. So, you know, it's just a great big thank you. So all those in favor of the motion? That's carried, thank you. New business and matters of urgency. Reading of bylaws and proceedings thereon. We have a short resolution.
That council gives 3 readings to and approves bylaw 27-23 being a bylaw to adopt a reserves and reserved fund policy for the town of Elmer. Bylaw 28-23 being a bylaw to authorize the signing of a lease agreement with Elgin County for Elmer Library at 38 John Street South. Bylaw 29-23 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at the regular meeting held on April 5th, 2023. And bylaw 30-2023 being a bylaw to establish and adopt the terms of reference for the Parks and Beautification Advisory Committee for the Corporation of the Town of Elmer.
All right, thank you. Mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor Barbers, and seconded by Councillor Van Ryk. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? As carried, thank you. Inquiries by members. Deputy Mayor Barber.
Thank you, Your Worship. Drivers, vehicle drivers are becoming much more aggressive approaching stop signs and streetlights to come to a complete stop at a stop sign and turn right, or to challenge the changing of the color of the lights. Seems almost to be a sport, and which gets me to my question. With the apparent increase in people running reds, is the delay time of the double red on stoplights before the other side turns green, is the delay sufficient to allow for that safe movement of traffic?
Rob?
Through you, Your Worship, that would be site-specific, but that's something I would need to look into, and I'd be happy to look into that and bring a report back to council.
Very good.
Further to that, Your Worship, is now the time that red light cameras should be considered? Can that be part of that report?
Through Your Worship to Deputy Mayor Barber, I know a lot of jurisdictions have recently utilized that technology and are having some success with that. It was probably about a year or so ago, I remember having some preliminary discussions with the Elmer Police Department, so I can certainly include that in with a report back to council.
We certainly welcome that report, thank you. Anything else? Anyone else? All right. Statements and committee reports. Councillor Oslech.
Yes, Your Worship. Earth Day is April 22nd, on Saturday. I encourage everybody to plant a tree to make the town of Elmer more beautiful.
Well said. Anyone else? Report of the mayor, not today. Notice of motion. 14.1. So we have Councillor Oslech that has a notice of motion. Who reads the notice? The notice of motion is read by you, or is it read by Councillor Oslech?
I can read the notice of motion.
Okay.
So the notice of motion, which will be for consideration at the May 3rd council meeting, is that council reconsider the vote on resolution number 107-23 and resolution number 106-23, refusing applications OPA 1-23 and zoning bylaw 1-23 for lands legally described as Lot 6 and part lot of Lot 7, John, North and South Walnut Plan 163, and municipally known as 230 John Street North.
Thank you. At this point, there's no discussion however, we do have an item that's related to that motion, 14.2. We have a resolution for that.
Yes. That council directs staff to take no further action upon the provision of notice of refusal respecting official plan amendments OPA 1-23 and zoning bylaw amendment 1-23, 230 John Street North, pending the outcome of the May 3rd council meeting, and that council direct that as there are no substantive amendments to the applications being considered on May 3rd, 2023, there is no requirement to reopen or hold a subsequent public hearing upon the application, and that council directs staff to receive and present any formal correspondence submitted on the reconsideration for consideration of council at the meeting, however, will not entertain any delegations, as to do so would presume the successful passage of the reconsideration motion, and that council directs staff to include the related staff report on the May 3rd, 2023 council agenda for information purposes only.
All right, thank you. Mover, seconder. Moved by Councilor Oslach, seconded by Deputy Mayor Barber. Questions by council? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor? As carried, thank you. And we have a closed meeting resolution?
Yes. That council moves into a meeting closed to the public pursuant to section 239(2) E, and K of the Municipal Act 2001 at 8:17 PM to discuss the following matters: Chief Administrative Officer Report CAO 24-23, Earth Board appointments, being close to the public as the subject matter pertains to personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. And Chief Administrative Officer Report CAO 24-23, Land Tribunals Appeals, Willow Run Subdivision, and Chief Administrative Officer Report 26-23, both reports regarding a matter of negotiation and mediation being closed to the public's subject, pertaining to litigation or potential litigation, including matters before an administrative tribunal affecting the municipality or local board, and a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiation carried on or to be carried on or on behalf of the municipality or local board.
Thank you. Mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Chapman, seconded by Councillor Rahi. All those in favor? Carried, thank you. There'll be a brief recess.
My estimation is.
Just read the resolution.
Right?
We-
Okay, so we will have a motion to come out of closed session.
Yes. That council rise from the meeting closed to the public at 8:47 PM and reports the following. That report CAO 24-23 entitled Land Tribunal Appeal Willow Run be received for information, and that council gave direction to the CAO. And that report CAO 25-23 entitled Earth Appointment be received for information. And that council endorsed the appointment of Gerald Richer Riche to represent the town of Elmer on the Earth Board for an initial 3-year term with a potential for a 6-year extension to 6 years. And that council appoint Mayor Cookett to serve as the voting member at the Earth Annual General Meeting held on May 26th. And that council receive report CAO 26-23 regarding a matter of negotiations and mediation.
Mover and seconder, Councillor Van Rays and Councillor Chapman. Any discussion further? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And a motion to adjourn. And seconder, Councillor Oslak and Councillor Rahi. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Oh, it kept you for later than I thought.
Yeah.
Just curious.
Oh, sorry.